Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 233 of my modded Factorio playthrough. In this episode, we are going to build our new setup and get the factory ready for it. Enjoy. We'll pick up the design for real this time. And hopefully, all this alignment is good. I'll keep the tiles in here for now to help make it easier to place. Here's to hoping it all fits. I would like to build us a nice warehouse here, because we're going to have a bunch of junk that's going to be created, so it would be nice to have somewhere to put it. At least so the robots don't have to fly all the way back up here, because that would kind of suck for them. So they need their storage warehouse somewhere. Let's just put it right here, and it's lots of little places for them to park, which is nice. They're probably going to need way more than that, though. And probably lots of charge pads, too. And we want to make sure the robots can reach with their construction zone, but it actually looks like they'll barely be able to. Well, let's unhook it from the crushers for now. And then we have to very carefully pick all this up. This is going to disconnect the logic wires for the acids, but it should be okay, I think. And actually, we won't need any of this either. Here come some of them anyway. Hopefully they bring them over here. And they do. Those other ones are going up just because of, I guess it actually has a place to go up there. Or at least some of it. The crush stuff does anyway. We kind of don't want them bringing stuff up there, so I want to try to help them a little bit here. If I pick this stuff up, hopefully they don't bring it back. Well, they kind of are, but looks like we don't have that many resources to begin with, so I'm kind of curious where they're taking all these, though. I guess it's just up here. That said, I kind of want to watch them, because I want to make sure they're not bringing them to some random chest somewhere that doesn't have a filter set on it. Because that's a lot of construction bots making their way down here. Well, and we can try to place our other thing here. So it would line up somewhere around here. Yeah, it looks like most of these are in the correct spot. So I think it would be kind of this spot right here would be the exact spot. Although it kind of looks like it's extending too far to the side here. It's kind of hard to tell. I think we just moved the positions of these over a little bit, so it would be like this. So I think we're looking at this right here. And that does actually line up right on the money. So I believe it's this. Yeah, and I think I got it correct. And some of these machines are running again now because the logic isn't set up. But that's okay. I think we'll just let it do its thing. Try to figure this out in a second here. It's going to be a little growing pain, as all the robots make it here and place things where they need to go. Wonder where all those robots were taking stuff. Let's see, they're grabbing pipes there. Okay, so they're not taking that crushed bombonium anywhere weird. They're just taking it back to this storage warehouse, which is alright. We'll get dedicated warehouses for all that once we've got all this positioned correctly. Well, while that's all working, we can try to figure out the crushed bombonium here. And one thing that's going to be a little tricky is that we're going to need to have 4 belts of resources instead of the 2 here, but it looks like it worked just fine. It's just being sent in here because of the old bombonium mine, I think, which I'm not even sure is running anymore. No, I guess it still is. But let's see, we can probably just kind of pick all this up. Well, but we've got some inserter business going on, but I think this will be easy enough to build manually. Army of bots. Work is continuing here, but looking good. So yeah, I think I remember we only needed to have 6.7 crushers, but in practice that's 8. It's 4 belts in and 2 belts out. So it would be something like an input right here, and then an output belt, and then something similar on the other side. And because you get half as much crushed stone, then that would mean there would be a full belt of crushed stone right there. So we'll set that to bobmonium. I'm sure the input rate is going to be pretty crazy here, so let's switch back to the stack inserters. Yeah, we actually are going to need 2 stack inserters, just barely though, but 2 stack inserters of input and output. Something like this. And they have to be the filter version. And because they're inserting on one side of the belt, they need to be offset. And then long-handed. Right there. So we'll have another set down here. It's kind of funny how wide this all ends up being. That's enough for our 2 belts of input there, so then we need another set to go over here. And I kind of wish the personal robots extended there, because we still need to do the wires here. So actually you should probably pick that up. I guess we'll worry about connecting that in the end, but we need to have our 2 constant combinators. We'll plop these on the end again, although maybe we can mash them in here. So we'll do red being the regular output, and green is the crushed stone. This needs to be set filters. So let's give this a shot. If we set this to our crushed bobmonium, it sets all those to bobmonium, and then set this one to our crushed stone. And it sets all of them. Excellent. Well, we have an input here. And that's going to trash my inventory. Very absolutely. But we're going to have 4 belts, basically, of inputs right there. Although I think it could just be lined up with this section right here. Let's turn off logistics for a second. Okay, looks like most of that got built. But that should basically be the 4 belts of input. We do need to hook up this mine though, which means we need to have a sorting warehouse in here. And actually, these sorting warehouses make pretty good requesters for the bobmonium, just as long as there's logic right here, which only turns them on if the bobmonium is less than, oh, I don't know, 10,000. And this one should probably also be set, but to like 20,000. So this one has priority. So we'll hook all those up again. Yeah, we do need to get the network down here, but we will. So this gives an idea of location here. We do have to concern ourselves with all of the slag slurry, but it's only one machine. So it'll be pretty easy wherever it goes. Well, then let's just line this up with the other machines. Something like this. And I think that's it. Yeah. And we got to get the network down here. How did it end up? Up here. Full coverage. Awesome. So this just needs to have something somewhere. So why not there? And that should keep it connected. So we're getting close to the point of being able to test all this. Let's see, this is where the belts were lined up, so we'll reuse it. And actually, now that I think about it, we did want to have like 6 belts of resources kind of coming to the side here. So it would look something like this. So actually smashing these up does have a little bit of value, but it seems like they would fit here just fine without any major issue. Just as long as this was more appropriately placed, because then these could come along. Well, a storage warehouse can go off to the side here, because some of the belts need to go this way. So we can do something like this, and have this one asking for the crushed bobmodium. They would go up. Guess we'll cut it off here so we can test it later. And then the others would go down. And I guess it makes the most sense for it to be this first one. And that's the bypass for the cupric and ferric mixtures. And then we'd have our inputs, which would go there. And of course some logic. And let's say less than, well, just 1,000 or something. It doesn't need to be very much for the purpose of that to work. This is also being used as a warehouse for all of this bobmodium, so it helps for it to be a little bigger. And let's see here. Well, one thing I wasn't considering, but makes a little more sense now, are these, and we need to have those 4 spaces open. Let's see, somehow they got connected to water. Not sure how that happened. Well, flush. But our connection can keep going down to here somewhere. But we do need to be able to handle all of that crushed stone. It looks like I threw away the liquefier, so I'm just going to make one real quick. And it can go anywhere. We have 75 per second, but I don't think that's necessarily correct because it's linking to crushing the crystal slurry as well. So you need it to be 60. But basically the idea is the same, where we just need 2 belts going in. And basically 3 stack inserters for each belt. So we can try coming down here. Although we don't want to crowd this. So it's a good thing that we are paying attention to where it is. It's a little cramped in here. And we want to make sure these don't butt up against each other. There's actually not a lot of space in here when you consider this belt right here. And the fact that the no-go zone is like right here, which is making this really narrow. But we could just go straight up, basically. Because we can like just go right up here. And then take this little space right here, which we do have open. We can try to line it up with this guy to make slurry, but we also need to have the output potentially be sent on this bus right here. But I think we can do that in kind of a funny way, where we just have these here and just say there's an output priority to the bus. Let's see, let's make this 1 space lower, because then these can combine onto there. So that would prioritize stone going to stone processing, and then we could modify this, because it wouldn't really work the same. We basically, none of this would run anymore, because stone would be coming from other locations, so you would have to modify that, but at least for now I think that gets the logic taken care of. The belts are a little longer that way, but it might make it easier in the long run, because then we can just kind of hook this up right there because it's going to the same location. And even this can kind of be hooked up here because it's using the same acid. Seems like it. Now these pipes on the end aren't hooked up, but we'll worry about that in a second. So we needed, I think, 3 stack inserters on each side, basically. So I think that's good. We can pull this away because it's just a marker. So the bobmonium goes in to get crushed. The crushed stone gets prioritized to being sent on the bus, basically solely to go through here to make bricks. It's kind of inefficient to do it that way considering we can really squish them down, but that setup's already in place. So I want to try to use what's already existing here, and then after the setup's all good, and we want to come through here and re-optimize crushed stone processing, we can then. So that's why it's kind of weird how we have 2 different setups kind of doing the same thing right now. So any leftovers that can't fit on the bus will be sent up here to be processed and sent down. And for this to work, this warehouse essentially always has to be full. And I think we have an alarm set to it right now. So yeah, we'll probably be changing quite a bit about how that logic works when we get to that point. But it should still work the same because in the end, all of the resources are going through the same processes and being sent to the same places. So it shouldn't really matter for the time being that it happens up here or down there. But then we have a warehouse with the crushed bobmonium from bots and any leftovers. And then that crushed bobmonium will come up. And we have our 3 belts. And looks like some power poles kind of in the way. Probably should get all these pipes lined up now. So this one did get moved down a square. So it would be right there. And then the mineral water. Luckily it doesn't cross over anything. So we can just go there. And get it lined up with where it needs to go. It's a little empty pipe right there we don't need. Then we need our 3rd belt of acid products, which we're going to have to find somewhere to put, because we are running out of space there. So we're probably just going to have to offset this around, but one step at a time here. Then the logic for it is up here. We need to put that logic somewhere. Probably makes the most sense to come along these here. So like right there, then up and in. So that should get these set up now. There is more than 60,000, and they are set to sulfur, which is the correct thing here. So they are already disabled. Might as well just hook this up in a temporary way. So of these 3 belts of crushed bobmonium, one of them is a bypass and goes straight down here. And it would basically be hooked up to the same spot, except it's just offset by 1 here. And none of these belts would be necessary, but we'll take care of the rest of them later. And then the other 2 belts come up here and get sent through the washing plants that be turned into chunks. Of the chunks, 1 belt goes straight up to be placed back on the bus, and 1 belt goes down to be sent to be made into crystals, which it takes the sulfuric acid from. And then the crystals are up here, so that gives us our 1 belt of crushed chunks and crystals. And then the leftovers, the geodes, get sent down here to get crushed. The crushed geodes get turned into the slurry, and the crushed stone gets turned into slurry. And then that should be the whole setup. Most of the pipes seem pretty well connected here. Let's disconnect that so we can see everything working. But I think that's pretty good. The only other thing is the extra resources that we might find in our inventory. So let's build a strong box here. Let's see, where to put them. Actually, it's probably not going to be very many. This is just for when we are running around and doing stuff. The belt on the left is the one that goes to the bus, and the belt on the right is the one that gets turned into chunks. So, we can probably just use individual storage chests for this. It's not like we're going to get them very often, so we don't really need to worry about the speed, because they'll eventually get used up here. Just the main thing is that this happens up here. Let's put that in there. Because we want it to have priority, so if it's higher up on the line, it'll have higher priority. And the same applies right here as well. And that is for the crystals. So crystals, chunks. Okay. I think we're getting pretty close. Now we need to prime the system with water. And we're going to need 2 water pumps worth of water here. Which is slightly annoying, but it is what it is. Luckily the water is close by. But it's nice having these little marked off areas for this. They are kind of directly in the way of where all the belts will go, but whatever. And they both kind of pop out right here. Oh, those are in the way. Sadness. Anyway, those are hooked up now. They do seem to be running. And very quickly, these filled up with our 4,000 water. And the other end is maxed out at 1,000 because they have pressure pumps. And all of these now have their water. Okay. Now we need to get the acids in here. And also the slurry as well. The acid's already at the bottom here. So with that hooked up, we should now have acid everywhere where we need it. It seems like we do. And I guess the slurries can just kind of attach on top of here. We have to make sure we get the exact correct one. The crystal slurry is connected here. They look very similar to each other. But it is crystal slurry, not crystal seedling. And it looks like the closest one is kind of right here, but... And that's a crystal seedling tank, so we can't really use that one. We do want to have a set of priorities for this because we're going to have multiple sources of it. And the whole system will clog up fast if it doesn't have anywhere to go. And that is a disadvantage of doing it the way I am here, is that there's no buffers. So I'm just going to disconnect these for now, because I think this is a crystal negative setup. So it's not going to really do much right now because there's nowhere for the crystal slurry to go. It might help just to have a buffer tank in there for the time being, just to make sure it works correctly. But that could be the slurry. And let's make sure we get the other one correct, where it is slag slurry, not mineral sludge. So the slurry is over there. So we just need to hook up to another one of these and take it down a little further, and hopefully you don't run into anything. So there's the slag slurry. Of course, this thing's going to kind of fill up too. There doesn't appear to be any logic hooked up to this. Well, there doesn't seem to be any logic hooked up to the consumption of the slag. Let's hook up the output here. Now this output controls the mineral sludge, which is being used for other things. But what we want to control is just the input, so there will be some room in slag slurry if we need it. Well, let's put a tank down here. Let's run a green wire all the way up here, because then we can hook all these up. And there we go. And then these would only turn on Let's try to set it to 20% and just see how that works for now. Because pressurizing it isn't going to be very easy without rebuilding this whole setup. So 20% would be 10,000. Just to leave room for the other systems to work. We probably will actually have to change this logic because it's being controlled from different locations. Because right now it's looking at the slag warehouse and the crushed stone warehouse, but also it kind of cares about this as well. So what this is looking for is slag has to be over 80,000, or slag has to be over 10,000, but the mineral sludge has to be low, and then this is an and, so it has to be equal to 2. But the pump actually only runs if any individual condition is green. So what that means is we probably can have a third condition for this. So let's say if the slag slurry is more than 80% or 40,000, then it will turn on. Or at least it'll give a green square. And it only needs one green square for this whole thing to start up. So I'll look that up later because I kind of want to check all this to make sure that it works. And crystal slurry is kind of the same idea. Just think there's less logic connected to it. That's if we get overloaded on crystal dust, because that's converting it into mineral sludge. Because the slurry actually isn't used for that much stuff. So let's have another tank in here. Hooked up right here, I guess. It's going to be kind of in the way of the road a little bit, but I think we'll survive. And then we need some logic to control these inserters in the same way as with the slag. So crystal slurry has to be below 10,000 before these turn on. And they definitely want to because there's nothing in there right now. But the inserters all need to be set correctly here. There we go. And this one gets rid of the extra. Originally, the condition is crystal dust is high, but also the condition needs to be if this is high, the crystal slurry. It is a little complicated when you're setting up a new process within an existing one, so the logic is kind of, let's say, hacked together. Because that's kind of what this is here. Well, let's unhook that for a second. So we have our two conditions. One of them's on the green wire and one of them's on the red wire. One condition is the crystal dust is high, which probably won't really be relevant soon when we remove that, but whatever. We will work within the existing setup for now. And the other one is if the crystal slurry is high, and that number would be 40,000. And then this would run as long as it got anything more than 0 squares. And it's currently disabled because nothing is maxed out yet. Well, now we should be able to hook these up, see how they work. So if we hook this up, it should only fill up to about 10,000 and then basically stop. It's not exact, but the inserter stopped swinging, which means it basically worked. It's just there was more in the system there. Although if that slurry only goes to that one place, then we could disable it here, I suppose. It's kind of two different ways of doing the same thing, but having the pump here means it's much more accurate. And I think this is the only place that the slurry is going. So it should be alright having a pump in there. Well, we can hook this up with the green wire and just say the slag slurry has to be less than 10,000. And that should be a more accurate control of the level. Let's just have the pump in here. And crystal slurry is less than 10,000. So now they run, it goes very fast, and then stops. I think that's pretty good here. We've got our crystal slurry and our slag slurry. That's a little high, but the number will go down. Let's reclaim part of this road. The drones can drive around it, it's fine. Okay, which line is which? Looks like we had some of that water get stuck in one of these lines here, so let's just delete that and hopefully it doesn't come back. So this outer one is for the crystals, so it can come in there, get hooked up. And that one's for the slag slurry. Well, luckily no pipe errors, so hopefully that means everything is hooked up to the right location. And I think that does it for our initial test here. So we can see how this works. But that's going to have to wait until the next episode. Thanks for watching, and I will see you later.